Hello, and welcome to the Culty Podcast. I'm your host, Iris, and today we have another episode of Friday with Friends where I'm joined by my friend, Mia. Mia, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Mia Hartney. I'm a book author. I occasionally stalk my favorite culty person. This is just stalking, but very much closer.
It's stalking with the interaction.
It's consensual
So
stalking.
it's very intense. Yes. I'm Iris. If you've been around here, you know me. I study theology and I've been always very interested in cults, sects, and mythology. That interest went a little bit too far, and that's how we ended here on a podcast with my friend Mia. Just a side note for anyone watching, this episode is completely unscripted and fully unprepared, which means that we have not fact-checked ourselves or each other's. Take whatever we say with a grain of salt, and have fun. You are an author, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me something about your work or works?
Oh, you're going to make me talk about it? See, this is just mean. You didn't say you're
Yes.
going to be mean to me. Man, you said this was
Mia,
gonna
do
be
you know
friendly.
me? Do you know me? I'm called Hellfire.
I know, that is true. That is true. But you've only been sweet to me. I feel misled. Anyways. So actually, well, I do a little bit of everything all mashed into one. So I do mythological fantasy. I do with mythological fantasy that's shoved in with a ton of poetry. But I have like other novels I'm working on too. So my published book is Killing Me Softly: Love Letters from Tragedy and Death. And this series is about the 9 muses, because I love Greek mythology, but I didn't want to write about the ones everybody else writes about, because there's like 6,000 stories about all the others. So I chose some that I found interesting. And then I'm also working on a shapeshifter book called The Jackal and the Gypsy. And that still has mythology, because I think I've stated I love mythology. So that has Egyptian mythology. And that's about giant jackal shifters and humans. And, you know, how the CIA is bad, just cause I wanted to. And then the other thing I'm working on, I'm currently actually editing my second book in my Muse series, because that's going to be out on August 15th. And I'm working on a random story for an anthology where all of us authors got given items to do stories about, and mine was a pitchfork. So my story is The Quest of the Holy Pitchfork. So I'm doing a few things.
Nice. So, you use a lot of mythology in your stories?
Yes. Yeah, I love mythology.
What's your favorite mythology to write about, or just mythology in general?
Why are you making me choose? I'm a why choose
Because I'm an asshole.
This is just abusive. So, technically, I love all mythology. My favorite has been Greek, which is funny though, because technically I'm part Scandinavian, so I really should love Norse mythology, but I love Greek more. So there's some conflict there in my brain, but I just ignore it, so. But really, I love all mythology, because I love the concept that for all of these people at pretty much the same time looked around and said, we have to explain everything. How do we do it? And came up with these wonderful stories. And all of them were multiple gods at the same time. And one of my favorite people that I used to listen to when I was younger was Joseph Campbell, who is just, I love and adore everything he did. And I remember, like, I think the first thing I watched of his was about, like, kind of the order of how mythologies came out. And it was basically like for a brief moment, women, we had our time. We had some matriarchal mythology, and then it went to polytheology, and then it went to male-oriented polytheology, and then we went to the one god, and we've all been just so happy after that. So happy.
I smell the sarcasm.
Yep, it's alive.
How did you get into mythology?
How did I, I think it was because I was, when I was growing up, I was, like I said, I was always very creative. Like, in my head, I would make up all these, like, worlds and peoples and planets, and that's how you know your kid's gonna be an author. Anyways. And I had all these, like, very intricate stories, and then I actually grew up because when I first grew up, I lived in, like, the second most dangerous neighborhood in Portland. So literally, like, the crime rate was higher than the whole state. So it wasn't really safe to go outside. So pretty much I was either at school, at home, or at the library because it was safe. And then when we moved, because I loved the library so much, I ended up working there. So I had access to all of these different books and subjects and da-da-da-da. And I loved mythology. I started out loving, like, Athena and who was it? I forget what exactly got me onto Greek mythology, but it was one of the stories. And then I just, like, I remember doing a paper on it in high school, and actually about my least favorite god, which is Zeus. And then from there, pretty much, because I always had this thing where if I was like fascinated with something, I would just research the F out of it. Didn't matter what it was. And so, like, I researched because I was doing this paper. I just went deep into Greek mythology and then found out, like, for example, way back when, I'm a little old, way back when we learned about, like, when they talked about mythology, it was always kind of, when people talk about it, they kind of graze the top. So it's like, here's Zeus, and here's Poseidon, and here's Hades, but Hera is bad, and this one's this, and it's like, okay, well, why is Hera bad? Why is Zeus in, like, every single story? You just start looking into this. I was just like, why is this? I think the paper I did on was actually about Hera. And she's not my favorite goddess, but, like, I've always felt for her because if you actually research into why Hera is the bad one, it's actually, she's not the bad one. She's the goddess of, like, 6 different things, but one of her main things was marriage. And because there are certain rules that the gods are bound to, basically Zeus was like, okay, she's super powerful. I need her to help me lead. She told him no, he wasn't happy. So he raped her, and then basically that forced her to marry him. Because she couldn't remain the goddess of marriage. Like, literally, there was some implication in the story I read that, like, if she hadn't married him because of what happened, she would have either lost her power or something to the effect of she basically was bound to her gift, which I thought was a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
But then I was like, wait a minute, because, like, one of my favorite TV shows was Xena Warrior Princess. And again, so it's this whole implication of, like, oh, Hera's bad. And then, Hercules was on at the same time. And it's like, well, Hera's bad. Well, no, she's not. Hera just got screwed over and has to put up with all this BS. I mean, if I had to, I'd be really freaking cranky too, all the time, 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, now, what's your favorite mythology?
So, I like the more Germanic mythology because I grew up with it. So the fairy tales from Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
We just have a lot of folklore and myths here that I fell in love with growing up. We have a lot of, like, nature-based gods and goddesses, but also, like, mythological creatures. Yeah. We have a myth that so if you go outside in the morning and you step into a big field, like maybe on a farm or just a grass field, or sometimes in the morning there's, like, a layer of dew. You can't really see the whole field. That got explained to us as the Vitsevifen, which is, like, in that mist there live ladies dressed in white, and they take care of the field. But if you are disrespectful to them, they will kidnap you into
Your
those
face.
fields.
Yeah.
And basically, the point was also to not just go into those fields.
Yeah.
Because you could get lost. And I was obsessed with those myths when I grew up.
And that was one of the reasons I liked mythology, because I liked the way that, like, they wanted to try to explain everything. And so they created these fascinating stories. Like, even if they're, like, bad, it's just like, oh, the sun exists because Apollo has to do this kind of thing. Or the stars exist because, you know, basically two different titans made love and created babies, basically. So it was like,
yeah,
it's like, this exists because of this. And they wanted to just find a reason for everything. And I always appreciate, if you're going to try to find a reason for something existing, to be creative with it.
You said you don't like Zeus. Why don't you like Zeus?
Okay, how many hours do we have for this podcast? Because I could go.
You have about
6 hours. Good, perfect time. Okay, so man, like, the amount of reasons, it's partly because just the whole patriarchal aspect. I don't know if you could tell, I'm not a fan of the whole patriarchal nonsense. Okay, so but Zeus, I mean, I think part of it is because, fun story, when I was looking into Greek mythology, at the same time, one of my favorite queens in history is Queen Elizabeth I, right? And so at the same time that I was looking into Greek mythology, I had also stumbled upon King Henry VIII. So, those two, lot alike. King Henry VIII and Zeus, definitely related, brothers from another mother, okay? So, there was a lot of correlation there of, like, just the whole attitude of Zeus is like, because I was looking at Greek mythology as a whole, right? And so you have, like, Athena, who's like the goddess of war and wisdom. You have, you know, Aphrodite, the goddess of love. You even a Hephaestus and Hades. Like, Hephaestus is the god of, you know, metalwork, and he's actually also a strategist in his, like, godhood stuff. You also have Hades, who's like the god of the underworld, but then you have Zeus, who's in charge. And not to say, because I love me a good thunderstorm and I love me lightning, but, like, it was like, wait a minute, he's the god of thunder and lightning, but he's the king of the gods? And the whole premise was, he's the king of the gods because he was the one who killed Kronos. Okay. And hey, I'm not downplaying the one big thing he did, but then if you look at everything else that Zeus spent time doing, minus like 4 things where he might have helped people, most of the time, Zeus basically is just effing around and using his powers not to help anybody, but to help himself. He's using his powers to get laid. So it's like, wait, and not to mention, I mean, okay, I'm ignoring the whole him and Hera are sister and brother because, you know, the whole Greek thing was, you know, incest all around. Most of the religions had that nonsense. But it was just the whole point of, like, you're this all-powerful god, but all you're using your powers for is to turn into weird animals, turn your girlfriends into weird animals, and have sex with them. Like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, honestly, actually, a book I want to write that I'm going to add into, like, my repertoire is, I'm going to do a series about the Fates. And I mean, if you look up the Fates, or the Mirai, however you want to call them, here are 3 women who are super powerful. Like, literally, they control life, okay? And you look at the fact that in all the stories about them, basically all they do is work. They don't ever take a break. They're basically just working 24/7. But then you have Zeus, who's all powerful, and, like, F's everybody up if they even say that he looks ugly on a bad bloated day or something. But you have, like, the Fates, who get, like, called crones, and get called ugly, and get called all this stuff. But mind you, if you look into more of the stories of Greek mythology, you'll notice that, like, in some of the stories, it basically implies that Zeus doesn't fuck with them because he knows they can end him. And then, like, even, like, look at the stories about Aphrodite. So, for a while there, I was on the fence about Aphrodite, okay? Because she does some shady stuff. She's not pure driven snow, okay? But there was like 2 or 3 stories when I looked into them, there was the implication of like, basically Zeus doesn't fuck with Aphrodite because she's one of the few gods who can cast use her powers on other gods. And he don't want to deal with that. So like, because I think the one time he effed with her, I think she made him fall in love with an actual animal, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But like, it wasn't even a female turned animal, it was an actual animal. There are just all these stories of like these all-powerful women. And yes, I was raised by a huge feminist. I'm not that bad. I'm not as hardcore feminazi as she is, but like it I was very much raised to like look at the history and look at what has kind of happened to women. And I was always really I just remember I was irritated by Zeus because here's all these female gods who are doing this, that, and the other, but then what is Zeus doing? Effing around. And then I think what really impacted that was the story about Hera and Zeus. Because I remember when I first started, it was like Hera's this messed up evil goddess who does all this terrible stuff. You know, she's picking on Hercules, who's a kid. She's like casting all these chicks, like trying to mess them up and kill them. And it's like, well, why? Like, why is she the bad guy? And then you look into it and it's like, it's basically a trauma story. Like, the woman was traumatized constantly by Zeus. Not only that, but like somebody actually reminded me, a friend of mine, Raven, who's a narrator on TikTok, actually reminded me about the fact that one of the stories about Hera is that she tried to kind of deal with Zeus for his infidelities, and basically he effed her up to the point that he basically was gonna like, I don't know if he was gonna take away all her power, but basically he effed her up and re-abused her to make the point of, I'm a man, I should be able to sleep with people, don't get in the way of my pleasure. So like, because she wasn't actually gonna go after the females first, she was gonna go for his ass. But because it's a patriarchal, mythology, it was, oh, well, we can't punish the guy for his infidelities. No, Hera's allowed to punish the chicks, but she's not allowed to punish the guys. And so, like I said, A through Z, I have reasons for not liking Zeus. But a lot of what made me not like him was, here he is basically traumatizing and abusing Hera over and over and over. And by the way, none of the other gods did anything. Not happy with their asses about it. But it was a lot of like, why is Hera so angry? Well, no shit, Hera's angry. Hera's angry because she's basically an abuse victim who's been traumatized constantly, and the person who's doing it, she can't do anything against him because he happens to have a little bit more oomph. And why does he have that oath? Because he killed their father. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But then you have all-powerful fates who are basically supposedly ugly crones, but they're the ones who actually control life. It's like, huh? And that was my Zeus rant.
Which was a very valid rant, by the way. So speaking about research for your book, are you like someone that just writes a whole story and does the research after, or like do you like to get a whole bunch of research first and then write parts of the story, or do you like
I do kind of both.
fully go creative and don't
I do kind of like, I think I tend to do both. It's like, a lot of times I'll have, and I'm not even kidding, how many book ideas I've had from dreams is ridiculous. So a lot of times I'll have a dream, like that's how I got my Jackal and Gypsy book, is I literally had a dream for like 4 nights in a row about this society with jackal shapeshifters and Romani gypsies. And like, and yeah, they don't like to be called gypsies, I know. That's a whole separate thing. But I had this dream for like 2 or 3 nights, and then I just started like writing it. And then I was like, oh yeah, but I want to tie in like Egyptian mythology, and I want to do this. So like halfway through, I started researching it. And so I kind of do the same thing with most of my stuff of like, I'll kind of go off like the creative premise, I'll start writing, and then I'll just start like, it's like for example, like in one of the poems, which one? I was trying to find, I was like, okay, I need, because one of the one main character is kind of like telling the other main character to go jump off a cliff. They're like, no, I'm not interested in you. And so I was like, I was trying to find, the other character was like, well, wait a minute, you hang out with this person, you like this person. And I'm like, okay, I need to find a Greek god of like partying and fun, or one that's known as kind of a partier and fun person, and go with, and then like use that as the example, because I'm like, I always, and I was saying this the other day of like on a different book talk interview of like, when I do my stuff, I love to put history in my stuff, because I am like, when my kids were going to school, half of the history they learned was from me, because I was like, there's a lot of subjects, like you'll learn math, you'll learn this, but our schools have 10,000 problems, but some of those problems are they don't have enough time to kind of teach some of the fun stuff of history, or just any kind of like basic history. They just teach you like, oh well, here's the Roman Empire, here's the Civil War, here's the Age of Reason, and then here's the Industrial Age. Like you hit the main points, but you don't get into the flavor of it, like the awesome creativity that like just exists in all of history. And so I remember like we were talking, one of the subjects had come up, and I was like, well, because one of my favorite YouTube channels, because I love to watch YouTube. I'm a secret, like the Let's Plays. I'm a secret watcher of those. I love epic rap battles. So I literally, like, I think I had my kids watch all of them at some point. Their uncle started it, by the way, but then he introduced me to it. I was like, oh yeah, I love it. Because they do rap battles about history. That's what I wanted to share with my kids. And so I do the same thing with my books, where I will tie in. It's like, I'm gonna, like in my first book, which was about tragedy, the muse, opening, and the Grim Reaper. And so I did it from the point of, they were basically sending each other's letters, but they were possessing humans to write the letters. And so I was like, I want to throw in famous humans that I like, that I've been interested in. So like one of like the Grim Reaper basically follows her when she's messing with Jack the Ripper. And then I threw in Lizzie Borden, because who doesn't love Lizzie Borden? And then another one was like the Winchester house, so I threw in Miss Winchester. So like I love to put stuff in so that people can be like, I don't know let me go look this up. Because to me it's like, you should always be wanting to learn. And if I can put in like a creative reference, you can be like, oh, hey, I'm going to go look this up. Because sometimes people get curious and be like, what is this about? Da-da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. When writing your stories, are you in general more of a plotter or a pantser?
So, by the way, I didn't know what pantser meant. I had to look that up, because I was like, what is this pantser stuff? I keep getting this question. Again, both. I'm mostly, like I said, I start out as the pantser. So, like, I started on the Muse series again, because I got this idea of, like, tragedy having a crush on the Grim Reaper, right? And so I think I wrote that book in like 2 days. It took me like a month and a half to edit, but I wrote that book. It's a very skinny book also, but I wrote that book in 2 days pretty much. And I slept, I think, maybe like 6 hours, but I just was like writing it out. But after the fact, and now I finished the sequel. I'm editing it currently. But I was like, you know what? I literally finally broke down, because like for my Jackal and Gypsy series, I have a Google Doc full of notes, like probably at least 10 pages. It's at least 10 pages, if not, because I'm like, I can't, because I have short-term memory loss, so I forget stuff. If I think of it in the moment, I'm probably going to forget it 2 seconds later, and good luck me remembering shit. Because long-term memory, fine, short-term sucks. So I'm like, okay, I'm always writing notes to myself so I don't forget. And so finally, the other day I was like, okay, if this is going to be like a 9-book series, I'm going to have to break down and make a note. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna like finally make a Muse book notes. And I actually like made the document and was like figuring out, okay, who's gonna be with who, because the only two I had in my head before when I started was I had Melpomene and with the Grim Reaper, because I'm gonna pair all of them off. Okay, yeah. But then I was like, and then I made Comedy her twin, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if they had kind of the same taste in people? So I paired Comedy with Misery, So, which is
Mhm.
what's Miseria is the Greek goddess, but yeah. So I was like, so I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to sit down and figure it out, especially because I made up a war for my book series just cause. So I was like, if I'm gonna have a war, Zeus is gonna lose for 5 minutes. Yes, indeed he is. I'm like, I'm gonna have to like plot this out and be like, okay, where is this war gonna be? Who's gonna be with who? So I'm like, okay. So I'm like hooking the muses up with different people. Finally started, but mostly I'm a pantser, but like when I get serious about the research, then I'm a plotter. Then I'm like point A, point B. This is kind of the main thing here. This is the main thing here. But then I'll still like, even in editing, because I'm one of those authors that loves to edit. I know. It's scary.
So
I know
jealous.
I've
You
heard so
scare
many
me.
authors who are like, I don't like editing, and I'm like, I enjoy the challenge of editing because to me, there's nothing I love better than to sit down with my work and just tear it apart and be like, okay, is this working? No, let's tear it out and do it again and make it better. Because I always tend to think I can make my stuff better, which might be imposter
Mhm.
syndrome, but I don't care.
Hey, if it benefits
Exactly.
your work.
And it has so far. So we're like, for example, I was editing the sequel and Misery Loves Comedy, and I I had this part that I wasn't really happy with because so Misery's insulting comedy basically, and I was like, I really don't, because I used a certain term but I don't like the term, and I was like, I know she's supposed to be
Mhm.
harsh, but I'm not really like I just don't like it. But I couldn't find a better thing at the moment, so I was like, oh, I'll just go on and come back. And then so now I'm editing, and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta change this because this is bugging me. So then I don't know. Do you remember the?
Mhm.
You may not, but do you remember the Beverly Hillbillies? Okay, so you should look
No.
them up because it's this hillbilly family strikes oil, and then they get rich, and they go live in Beverly Hills. But like, it's a very like matriarchal hillbilly family, so like they're gonna keep to their customs even though they're in Beverly Hills. And it was a hilarious sitcom, okay? It was like they had some great acting talent on it. So I was like, okay, I can kind of say the same thing by referencing Ellie Mae Clampett. And it'll make people look it up and be like, who
Mhm.
is this? So instead of the term I didn't like, I just used that instead.
And that's great.
Yeah.
I have a weird way of writing my stories because I start off with an idea, then I just start writing, and then I'm like, "But wouldn't it be so cool if they would be in a world where this would happen?" And then instead of continually writing the story, I create a whole new world and a new language and a new ecosystem and a new magic system and a new all the economical circumstances, and then I don't end up writing the book.
I get that.
Uh, I have now limited myself to that one world I created, and all my stories are just gonna take place in that world. And if you're asking the question, well, what about the magic? Not all your stories are
Yeah.
fantasy, right? Well, like Harry Potter, Muggles, and stuff like that. They're all just the magic will still
It's
be
just
there.
not in that
They
particular
just won't
story.
know
Yeah.
about it. They just won't know about it. So I'm now finishing everything about that world, and then I'll continue writing the stories because then I don't have an excuse to like make a new language because I already have a language and I can't do two because then I will confuse myself.
Hey, but it's fun to have two then. Yeah, and you can have, here's the thing. You
Don't start
you
me
can
on
have
it's fun
different
to have two.
dialects of the same language.
Don't start me on that because the spelling is so.
Voice type, like, let's do more. Let's push more.
See, the thing is, I'm already in one story. I'm already using
Yeah.
Dutch, and English, and in the other story, I'm using Dutch and a new language. So I feel like if you do too
Yeah.
much,
But
it's
you
gonna
can do
confuse
different
people. So
dialects.
I'm just
See,
gonna.
you don't have to do a different language.
I'm already
Well,
doing that.
okay.
I'm already doing that.
And then you could add a third language. I'm always the evil plotter on the side. Don't worry. So I'm a huge like mystery lover. I don't like scary stuff, but I do love me a good mystery of like Sherlock and Sherlock Holmes. One of my favorite was Sherlock Holmes, just not just because the cray cray, but because just the way he looked at the world and was like, he could look at like a coffee stain, a piece of lint, and a shoe and be like, okay, within 5 minutes, you got like when you read the stories about Sherlock Holmes, you got the point in the first couple paragraphs that he'd already solved it. The character had already solved the problem, knew everything that was going on, but he wasn't going to tell you, and he certainly wasn't going to tell anybody else until
Yeah.
he could have like proof. And because he it was like he could see everything and he could solve it, but then at the same time he always wanted to be like the perfect right. And so his way was like, okay, I've already got this solved, like I already understand what's going on, but I'm gonna lead Watson through all these plot holes and loopholes, and I'm gonna like test all these, poke this bear with this stick and see what happens, just to see, am I really right? Because that's one of the things I loved about Sherlock Holmes was like it seemed like in some of the stories that he wanted to be proven wrong, but he was always right. Like, it's Sherlock Holmes. But you could also tell that it was like a
Yeah.
burden for him to always like see, because he saw things in such detail. Then that's why he ended up like, that's why he was doing drugs. That's why he was like trying to do the escapist, because he saw literally like he could meet somebody and probably know half their life. And if you think about what kind of a burden that is, of just to like walk up to somebody you don't know and you already know 16 things about them, that would be really
Hmm.
annoying to be like, oh my god, I already know you, go away. I don't even want to deal with you today. Like, so I would probably do mystery because I'm a long time fan of Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes, all of those. We
Hmm.
can talk about, because you've got to know, you probably know this, about how Agatha Christie basically made herself disappear. Yeah. That was one of
Yes.
my,
There's like this whole
yeah, she
mystery
literally
around
just, was
that.
it 2 years? She literally, or was it months? I don't know. I think it was 2 years. Was it 2 years?
I think about
Yeah, it was
years.
at least a year, I think. So anyway, she literally like went missing, okay? And disappeared. I want to say, hold on. Google.
It was
Oh, it was
11
11 days. I thought it was
days, but there
years.
was something. But I think there was something that came out like years
Yeah.
later or something. Maybe that's it. Like she stayed in a spa and
Yeah,
changed
she
her
changed her name.
assumed the name of Theresa Naley or something.
Okay, so it was 11 days. Yeah, but she literally did this thing where she basically, because, and the thing is, she'd written all these books. She literally made herself disappear, and like, and they still, like, they never figured out, because she did such a good job that they were like, they were trying to find her. They couldn't find her. She had to come back, I think. I think it's literally, she walked back in and was like, okay, I'm here, bro. And, but they could not find her. And then, because they thought somebody had like kidnapped her, like they were like, oh, where is she? Like, who did this? And no, she just went missing, just for the funsies. So yeah, it was, that like interested me, of like, here she's written all these mysteries and she just disappeared herself for 11 days. No biggie.
Yeah. After that, she lived on for 50
Yep.
years without ever discussing
She never said.
why
Yeah,
she did it.
she literally took that secret to her grave. And I remember, I think it was like, was it a documentary? It was something where they talked about how, like, for years, people tried to find out, like, where did you go? What happened? What did you do? And, like, but she never talked ever.
Yeah, and it was also like she claimed to not
Yeah. Yeah,
or
have some kind of amnesia or
um
something. Which actually is a thing now. You can have
and people
trauma
are
induced amnesia. So,
yeah, but people were, because she did it so well, the disappearing, people were wondering if she actually didn't remember or if she was trying to frame her
yep.
husband, or um and she actually remembered, or if something else had
Yeah.
happened.
Yep. Yeah, mystery writers as a group are very interesting. Like, or at least some of the famous ones have been they're just very interesting people. Like, you have Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, who didn't even like his Sherlock Holmes stories. He wanted to be known for poetry and couldn't get known for it.
Also, I was researching the because of Christie thing, and there are a bunch more famous authors that went missing for a short time and came back or just were found dead.
That's why I'm saying mystery writers as a bunch, they're an interesting group. So I don't know that I actually want to be a mystery writer. It seems like it's an easy way to go crazy, and I'm already crazy. I don't need the help. So
hey, but if you're already crazy, you can't go crazy because of mystery writing because you're already crazy. So I'd say take the risk.
See, you just want to make me more crazy.
Yes. I want you to join my cult, so more crazy.
I mean, but see, if I'm going to join a cult, it has to have, there are certain requirements. Like, let's see, shiny things. Let's see, $10 million, because I don't want to worry about bills. And yeah, that's giving up earthly possessions nonsense. Nah, I'm good. I have books. I can't give up the books.
You don't have to give up the books, but giving up earthly possessions and keeping your money, I don't know if we can get to an agreement on that, but maybe you can be like our cult author that writes all the literature that everyone is supposed to read.
But that just sounds like work. But
no, you would just write your books like normally, but then they would go on the list of allowed works to read.
I'll think about it.
And you get like income from that because we would purchase the books.
I mean, that's true. I'll have to think about it.
We in another conversation with friends on the podcast, we made like full-on plans to make merch with either a cult name or like a saying that people say to join, and we made the idea that if anyone wants to join, they would just have to type "Yeehaw Fairy Dust" in the comments, and they would be a member.
That's the way to go.
Anyone wants to join? Yeehaw Fairy
Dust.
Dust.
Like fairy dust. Who doesn't like fairy
sprinkles?
So
it's funnier to me and those friends because that's basically an inside joke that started at the beginning of our friendship, and it's very funny to now be able to use it for like the wider internet. We're idiots. We're crazy, but it's fun crazy, not crazy.
See.
In a scenario where we discover a new world and you are able to cultivate it however you want and take with you whoever you want and have creatures on there, real or fictional, however you like, and you can keep behind whoever and whatever you like, what would your planet look like? What creatures would be on there and what people would be on there? What would nature look like? Who or what are you behind?
This is complicated. Let's see.
It is.
Well, I probably do because a lot of my favorite like sci-fi stuff is Anne McCaffrey. And if you've read Anne McCaffrey, there's like a lot of different worlds. But there's actually one of my other favorite book series. It's by S.L. Biehel. And I really like because she did this thing where she kind of every book she kind of introduces you. She introduces you to different worlds. Okay, it's Biehel. And so I really like. She had like a water world where like they had glass domes in the water, and so like living underwater, that's kind of always been a fantasy. So definitely would have probably some, dome societies in the water as well. I'm big because I'm Florida, so we're big on the trees here, kind of a thing. So I would probably have on land, like definitely a lot of like I'm sure there'd be some wooded elf type tree castle thing. There'd also be mountains because I realize that there are weird people because they're just fascinating animals that live in jungles. Let's see. Probably, I would definitely like one of the creatures I would have is Pegasus, because I've always loved the concept of the flying horses, and definitely with unicorns too. Not gonna lie, love the unicorns. Otherwise, and of course, you know, if my boyfriend's coming with me to this world, we're gonna have to have things with tentacles. That's a whole long story. So probably end up having fragments and some other stuff. Because, you know, if you're gonna have a world, you gotta have some kind of danger conflict, or how else is the world gonna run? It will just be boring. And then, of course, well, yeah, Bigfoot has to come too, because he's from my state. So, like, if I don't bring...
Yeah.
Yeah, so... I don't think. And then, like, what people I would bring with me? Or do you mean just, like, historical people, or, like...
Whatever you like. You also don't necessarily have to answer that with people. I just threw that in there. If you have any specific people you'd like to take with you, or specific people that won't be allowed on there.
Yeah. Well, I'm not that I don't like all old white guys, but there will be a rule that they can't be the only ones in change. So, because
that's valid. Yeah.
Problems to old white guys. Just saying, love you, but some of y'all, you get power and you go cray-cray with it. I would probably have, let me think, so I love Queen Elizabeth the first, so I would bring, I don't care, I would just like, snag her out of history. And then she could just run shit for me, so I wouldn't have to do anything. And then, of course, I have to bring some rebels along. So, can I bring fictional people? Because I do want to bring some hot fictional people with me.
Yes.
So, Tuxedo Mask is coming. Sailor Moon is not. Tuxedo Mask is coming. And let's see who else. Well, yeah, I can't have a world just for Tuxedo. I mean, that would be weird. So, but there would be enough. There'd be enough people for everybody. Because definitely why choose one. So, and then I'd have some kind of water, like not like the ones in Harry Potter, but close. Some kind of water person, creature thing. And then I'd have to have cat people, because every cat person story I've ever read is awesome. So I don't care. I'm having cat people. They're probably dangerous. They probably nix half of us, but it'd still be fascinating. Okay. I mean, I do love my Acorna series. So somehow the unicorns would evolve into people. I don't know how that would happen. Genetics, man.
Hey, we don't have to figure out the logistics. When ending an episode, I always ask the guests 2 questions. First one is, do you want to promote any of your social platforms? Where can people find you? You sent me links, I will put those on the screen. But what is the place you hang out most, where people can
probably
see the most content?
TT, but I do, because there are things I post on Instagram that I don't post on TT. But mostly I hang out on TT, even though I'd love for a new app that didn't, be as mean to book talk as TT is. But you'll find me a lot on TT. I'm there. I'm also, I did make a YouTube, but I haven't done I need to work on it. And then, let's see. Yeah, pretty much TT.
Good. I will put the links up on screen when I'm done editing. So you can click it and check her out. Please do. Please buy your books.
My books they're fun.
Where can you find the Culty Podcast? You can find us on Twitch, twitch.tv/the Culty Podcast. Searching it in the search bar will give you bad results. We won't pop up for some reason. Hoping that gets fixed when we reach affiliate. We're on TikTok at the Culty Podcast. We're on Instagram at the Culty Podcast. If you have any questions, please reach out there, or on the Discord. You can join through the invite link below. The second question is a bit more deep. We end the episode by sending a message into the world, and Mia, what is something you want to tell the audience something inspirational, something they need to remember for the rest of the day or the rest of
Something
the week.
inspirational. Man, I have to be inspirational. Hard.
Or meaningful.
I think probably the thing I talked about earlier. I think a lot of people have lost the art of, which is agree to disagree. Like, we don't all have to get along. You don't have to be friends with everybody. You don't have to agree with everybody, but you also don't have to stop listening and cut off all ties. There is something as simple as agreeing to disagree. So, like, if you're having, like, a fight with somebody, you can just, you know what? You may not agree on the thing, but if you're really good friends and you've been friends for 20 years, why are you going to let that one little thing determine, everything else in your friendship or in that relationship? And I think people let, if you really I think people let relationships go too easily. It's like, you know what? If you really care about somebody and you really love and adore them, friend, family, whatever, it requires putting work into it. And relationships are not, it doesn't matter if it's a friendship, romantic, whatever. It's not an easy thing. There's always going to be problems, but you can't just give it up and walk away every 2 seconds. And unfortunately, I'm not saying everybody does it who's a Zoomer. I'm just saying, though, it seems like people are just like, I'm going to give this up and walk away because it's not going how I thought it would go. Well, welcome to life. Like, life's not going to go how you want it to go, but you have to remember that you have to put the work in. And also, remember to laugh, because life is too stupid and serious. And if you're not laughing about something, you're not enjoying life. Which is why I laugh about everything. Just saying.
Thank you. That was a really good message.
Okay, did I win? Did I win
What do
bacon?
I want to send in the world? You can have all the bacon you want. I don't have it. What have I not said before that I can say now? Just shoot the shot. If you don't try it, you can't succeed at it. If you already assume you're not gonna succeed, why not try it? Because the worst you can do is prove your point, but the best you can do is surprising yourselves. Shoot the thing. Don't be scared of failing. We all fail at things, and you just learn and get better at the thing, or you just get better at something else and forget about the old thing, and in 10 years you will not even remember why this was such a mess to get through.
Yeah, right?
So just try it. Try it. Try
Right.
it. That's my message.
Good message.
Thanks for being on, Mia.
Thank you for having me.